Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 289. We have some news coming out of the Virgin Islands, where it has been revealed that Denise George, the Attorney General of the Virgin Islands, has requested access to the sealed depositions from the Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Roberts defamation case. Those are the documents that are currently under appeal with the appeals court. Now, Denise George feels like something or multiple things within that sealed deposition and in that testimony can help her case move forward, perhaps. That would be the only reason why she would be requesting access to these documents. So this request has been made to Presca, and Presca will make her ruling, as in, will she grant access to these documents to Denise George and the Attorney General's Office of the United States Virgin Islands, or will they remain sealed? I'm pretty interested to see how this goes, because I wonder what Denise George believes is in that deposition that will help her case move forward. And again, I am sure that that deposition is explosive. Even if it's filled with stuff we know already, or we're pretty sure we know already, I think it is way more explosive once it's out there, once people can actually read the words that are on the page and not just hear it from somebody else. It becomes more real, right? So I know for a fact that a lot of people that cover this case and true crime in general like to read the court documents themselves. I know I do. And it's the same situation, right? You get this deposition in front of you, you get a chance to look at it and read it, then it is not just some BS that your friend Mike was telling you. This is stuff, these are court documents, this is stuff that's on the record that was said and sworn under oath. So it adds another layer of realism to everything, right? So I can only imagine what is inside that deposition, what Ghislaine Maxwell said while she was being questioned by Virginia's lawyers, and what sort of dirt can be found within those pages. And I hope beyond hope that it is released to the public. But tonight, we're going to take a look and see just what Denise George is asking and what the situation is around this request. This article was originally published in the Miami Herald, but it's hosted here on the site we're using at msn.com. The authors are Kevin G. Hall. Headline: Virgin Islands Attorney General wants a peek at Ghislaine Maxwell's sealed testimony. So again, I'm pretty curious to see how Presca rules here. I wonder if Denise George is going to make a compelling enough argument to sway Presca to unseal it. And then even if she does, I wonder what Everdell and Cohen's reaction is going to be. It's really interesting to watch the power plays on a smaller scale between these high profile lawyers and the prosecutors, right? There are layers to this shit. Many struggles are going on before our eyes. The Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands, who has accused the estate of Jeffrey Epstein of being an ongoing criminal enterprise, asked a federal judge Tuesday to grant her intervention in order to review sealed court testimony given by alleged Epstein madam, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, bipedal serpent, general all-around scuzzbag, Ghislaine Maxwell. And it's interesting here that the Virgin Islands is operating under the premise that this is an ongoing criminal enterprise, even with Epstein dead and Maxwell behind bars. Because what they're saying here is that the executors of the estate are propagating the behavior of the enterprise still, even though Jeffrey Epstein is dead. And that is basically what she's saying here when you read between the lines. And that's a pretty charged statement, right? To make that statement, you would think that Denise George and the Attorney General's office would have some pretty compelling evidence. And we know that the investigation has become rather broad in the Virgin Islands when we're talking about the financials. And to think that Ghislaine Maxwell would have to pony up this sealed documentation to the Attorney General's office in the Virgin Islands and have them add that to the loads of evidence I'm sure they've compiled already. It is absolutely damning for Maxwell and for anybody else who took part in this criminal enterprise. But again, I don't really know if Preska is going to acquiesce to this request and release this documentation. I really don't know how this usually goes. Again, I'm new to all of this as well, right? Besides the few federal cases that I've followed in the past, just out of interest because it was a big deal, be it, El Chapo or Gas Pipe Casso, et cetera, et cetera. I never really got down into the nuts and the bolts the way we are here. So I'm interested to see how this all breaks. In a filing to U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska, Attorney General Denise George sought access to a transcript now at the heart of two other important cases. The Maxwell transcript is from a lawsuit settled in 2017 between Maxwell and Epstein's chief accuser, Virginia Roberts. So again, like I said earlier, this is the documentation from that defamation case between Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia. Now, we also know that documentation from this original defamation case and the original testimony that Ghislaine Maxwell gave under oath was what led to her being charged with perjury as well. So again, I can only speculate just like anybody else, but I think that whatever is in that deposition, whatever sort of explosive information can be found within those pages and on those audio tapes could literally change the trajectory of the investigation. Attorneys for Maxwell, arrested in New Hampshire on July 2nd, are trying to block the unsealing of the key document in the civil lawsuit on grounds it will bias a future jury in her criminal case. I think that is inevitable at this point. This is a case where everybody talks about cases like this, right? And this is a case where it's no different. The only difference now is how large the audience is when we talk about things like this. We're no longer around the water cooler at work, right? We're no longer sitting at the employee dining room with 3 or 4 colleagues chatting about what went wrong in the world. Now we hop on the internet and we have access to literally millions and millions and billions of people. All sorts of people who might share your opinion or who are interested in the same things you're interested in. They have forums like at Reddit, et cetera, et cetera. So of course, a case like this is going to be talked about. Of course, it's going to be hard to find a jury who hasn't been quote unquote tainted by information in the case. It's up to the defense to prove, though, once all the chips are down and all the evidence is presented, that their client is innocent. And if they can't do that, if they cannot produce the evidence, then none of the other nonsense will matter because she will go to jail for the rest of her life. The transcript was set to be unsealed as part of a lawsuit brought by the Miami Herald, which argued that many documents from the long-settled civil lawsuit are of public interest because of the sexual crimes alleged to have been committed by Epstein, who died by hanging, allegedly, in a New York jail in August of 2019. And remember, we did get documents from this already. They're coming in a rolling basis. Like we talked about a few days ago. I believe it'll be every couple of months probably that we get new documents in this case. But I agree with the premise of what the Miami Herald was trying to do here. I think that this information is of important public interest as well. It's important that the public understands what occurred here, and it's also important that the public understands just how massive the scope was and how many public officials were involved with giving this man cover and helping him dodged the law with that draconian non-prosecution agreement. It's important that people know, and it's important that that documentation gets submitted to the record. Preska agreed there was an overwhelming public interest, but last month allowed Maxwell's attorneys to appeal the unsealing of her interview transcript. That appeal is slated to be heard in late September. I mean, they act like she did something wrong here. Look, again, everybody listening to this podcast for any amount of time understands that I am not a fan of the criminal justice system, that I am not a fan of the federal magistrate system. But at the end of the day, what's Preska supposed to do? You have to let her appeal this, right? Let the appeals court take a look and go from there. Or else you're setting yourself up for giving these people wiggle room, for letting them find a loophole to get out of the trouble that they find themselves in. And I think it was a good idea by Preska to send it to the appeals court and let them have a look. But the Attorney General wants a look at the transcript now, especially if the appeals court keeps it secret, because Epstein lived on Little St. James Cay, allegedly obtained tax breaks in the Virgin Islands through fraud, and committed sex crimes there. He did so, George maintains, through the help of lawyers and accountants who are setting his estate there, but are part of what she alleges is a crime group. And as much as I'm not a fan of Denise George, I am not a fan, because I believe that she is lining herself up and setting it up so that she can get some money out of all of this. Not for herself. Don't take me as saying she's trying to steal here and enrich herself. I think she is trying to get money for the Virgin Islands, right? And in turn, eventually help her own political aspirations when she can point back to the success she had here, how much money she brought in for the islands, etc., etc. Because remember, people like this, attorney generals, usually want to run for governor or mayor or whatever may have you. So I am not a fan of Denise George setting herself up to siphon money from the survivors, not in the least. But what I will say is she is not wrong about saying the lawyers and accountants are part of this criminal enterprise. Con and Indike especially. We've talked about them recently, and if you are not too familiar with them, I suggest you go back and in the catalog and you find the episodes that have to do with Con and Indike, because they played a crucial role within Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle. And the fact that Denise George is pointing this out and nobody else seems to be is a check in the win column for her. But she needs to get off of the whole money thing, because there's no way in hell that the Virgin Islands should be entitled to any money, considering they're the ones who set them up with this cush environment, that they're the ones who set them up with these tax breaks, that it is their politicians who made Jeffrey Epstein's life easy. If you want to go after somebody, Miss George, go after your former colleagues. The USVI seeks confidential access to these sealed documents and unfiled discovery materials because they are very likely relevant to its pending Virgin Islands Criminally Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. RICO, folks, okay? That's what it is, okay? They're going the RICO route in the Virgin Islands. They've been going this route for quite some time in the civil portion of this case, and it will not be too long, in my opinion, before we see it in a criminal form. Epstein and several Epstein-controlled entities before the Superior Court of the U.S. Virgin Islands, said the filing to Preska from William Narwhal, an attorney from Hartford, Connecticut, hired by the Attorney General to seek intervention. In the 14-page filing, George alleges that Epstein used his vast wealth and property holdings and a deliberately opaque web of corporations and companies to transport young women and girls to his privately owned island, where they were held captive and subject to severe and extensive sexual abuse. This is the sort of thing that you would think would have a concurrent criminal RICO case going at the same time, don't you? And again, They might have one going, folks, right? There are sealed indictments here. There's a grand jury in session. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And I might just be beating a dead horse here, and they're all over this RICO angle. But until I see that, until I see the criminal portion of RICO get kicked into effect, I am going to keep screaming for it from the rooftops. The filing further alleges the women and girls were lured to the island with promises of modeling and career opportunities, but instead were held captive and sexually abused and exploited. George cited the example of a 15-year-old girl whose passport was seized by Epstein to prevent her from leaving the Virgin Islands. George asked Judge Preska for limited access to all sealed documents filed in support of Maxwell's motion for summary judgment in the now settled lawsuit. All sealed documents filed in support of Robert's opposition to Maxwell's motion, and all sealed parts of the court's opinion on the motion. So she's going for the gusto here. She wants all of it. The limited access to all sealed documents that are in support of Maxwell's motion, in Virginia's motion, and what the court thinks about these motions. So she is really looking to set it up here. She's looking to really hammer them. And I would not, like I said, I would not be surprised, honestly, folks, if we see criminal charges against Indike and Khan come out of this investigation right here. These guys being involved as executors, it's going to come back to haunt them, and it is going to come back to bite them right in the ass. That is my prediction. In addition to George's racketeering-like suit against the Epstein estate, a probate court in the Virgin Islands is presiding over the unwinding of his vast global holdings. An Epstein Survivors Compensation Fund, authorized by the probate court, recently began operating, offering survivors a private way to seek compensation without bruising court battles. Look, I want to say that the compensation fund is going to be a great thing, but again, just like everything else in this case, until I see it in action, until I see the survivors getting the dough that they deserve, and until I see things moving in the proper direction, I am going to remain skeptical of everything that goes on. It's like the NFL, right? This is a show me league. You could talk about it, but this is a show me league. I need to see some evidence. I want to see receipts, and I want to see some movement and some statements from the survivors that this fund is treating them correctly and it's doing the right thing. Because if not, then it's just another vehicle and another instance of people trying to take advantage of people who have already been taken advantage of far too much. So I really hope that Denise George does the right thing, keeps her hands off of this money, and turns the civil RICO case into a criminal RICO case. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. The links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, folks, we'll be back tomorrow and we'll rock and roll one mo again. All right, everybody, enjoy your night.